real sense, why don't you give us sort of a summary in terms of why they are here with us today and some of the things that you think that they might be able to bring to this particular show. And then after this first segment is through, then we'll go through the background education for each of them, and then we'll have them to talk about some of their experiences.
All right, Dr. Haney, thank you once of all again for allowing us to be on the show today. I actually met Minister Sonia Vaughn Brown through Facebook. She had sent me a message on Facebook telling me about her book and everything. I guess she had been reading some of my posts or what have you, and seeing the mindset that I have. But she sent me a message on Facebook about a book that she had put out and everything. And of course, you know, from all the various shows we've done over the years, I'm always interested in people who have experienced negativity in life and have endured that negativity, and at the end result is they overcame that negativity. So when she contacted me on Facebook, I was very interested in her story and from prison to praise and all of that. Have not had a chance to get the book and read the book. But first thought I had was, man, I need to see if I can get you on comments with Dr. James Haney. So when that became possible, that's when I had contacted her about coming on here, and I'm glad she decided to show up and come out here today. And,
Very good.
And then, of course, Minister Ricky Waller, been knowing him for a few years here, and a very good friend of mine, you know, that minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, doing some serious work out there in the community, in the streets, trying to redirect the pathways of some of these young guys that's, you know, trying to, you know, maybe trying to experience the path that he has experienced and has overcome in his life. So, and that's what brings us here together, just to let the world know, basically, you know, who these people are and what they're doing.
Very good. And of course, let's start off with you, Minister Waller, by having you to give us some information in reference to your background, education, and experience. And Minister Brown will do the same in terms of her background, education, and experience. And by that time, we should be out of this first 6-minute segment of the show. And then we'll come back and we'll start with you, and we'll have you to talk about some of your experiences dealing with overcoming negative attitudes and conditions. Let's do it from that perspective.
I want to thank you for allowing me to be here, Dr. Haney, and my good friend, Pastor Kevin Walker and Sister Sonia. I thank God for this opportunity. I grew up in West Nashville, and I was a young man that I was interested in sports. I loved sports back then. And I went to high school. By the time I got to high school, I mean, I went there and I was already unaware that I didn't even know who I was at that time. So that's just a little briefing of growing up, and before I knew I was in high school, and then being captured, being innocent out there in the world. Man, it's amazing what being transformed can do for you. And so I'm just glad to be here to share some of the things that would be beneficial to others as a result of what I've been through.
Okay, very good. Minister Brown, let's have some statements from you in reference to that, and then we'll have this first break, and then we'll come back and we'll deal with it.
Dr. Haney, I want to also thank you for having me on the show, as well as Pastor Walker invited me on. But I grew up here in Nashville, and then at a very younger age, I moved to Murfreesboro, where I went through some various changes as well. My younger years, I fell prey to molestation. My younger years, which molded me in the wrong sense for a minute, which made me make some bad choices and led me down the road to smoking crack for a while. So I was lost for a little while during my earlier years, but thank God that He did some transformation on me, and some things changed in my life that made me come on back the right way.
And so, Pastor Walker, over the last 10 seconds that we have here, you think that we've got some good information here today in terms of how people might be able to overcome some difficult problems in their lives?
Oh, we got some excellent information coming from some people that has been through that pathway and have overcome.
Very good. And of course, we're going to take this first commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Pastor K. Walker, Ministers Waller and Brown, in reference to their abilities to overcome negative attitudes and conditions. And let us start with you, Minister Waller, and give our audience some information in reference to your book and how you came to write that book and some of the experiences dealing with the book. And of course, Ms. Brown will do the same, and then we'll have Pastor Walker to sort of summarize that aspect of it, and then we'll be through with this second segment.
All right. What happened with me with this book, when it came out, it was as a result of me overcoming the lifestyle that so many people are caught up into, and that is the street life. The street life is a trap that I didn't fall in, I didn't walk in, I ran into it because it was so attractive. And it's amazing of the things that a person can see and could desire it, such as I did as a little boy playing out in the yard with my basketball, just as innocent as I could be. And I saw guys standing on the corner, and they looked like they was enjoying themselves. They were styling, they were profiling, they was laughing, they was celebrating what they were doing. But they had no clue that there was a young boy watching them that happened to be me. And no matter what I was doing in the yard, I continued to watch them, and I was playing with my ball. I continued to watch them, and I got better with my basketball. And I became so good with the basketball that I thought maybe that's what I would pursue. Little did I know the power that I saw with what they were doing was more stronger than the basketball I had in my hand. And so the game fell in my hand, and I would say that because it's a trap. And I ended up taking over the community during my era, and people started to follow me, and they all ran into the ditch as I did. But God brought me out, turned my life around, and from being addicted for 20 plus years of my life, and now I've been delivered for 22 years. And it's good to tell somebody that you can come out. So this book was placed in motion. God ordained the book. And I just want to say to the people out here that's in the world that there's hope.
Yes.
And I wrote this book, and it says my heartfelt dedication to the people that I understand. I understand the people that are in a trap. I know what it means to be locked up in your own community. And this is without being behind bars. I was locked up in my own community, entrapped. And thank God that one day came that I got out of it, and it was only through the grace of God. I'm gonna say this, and I know it's not easy, but it can be done. I had got so out of control, and I still had the basketball in my hand, but now I'm a supplier of my community. And so as life moved on, make a long story short, I ended up on 16th and Joe Johnson. I come off of 40th in West Nashville. Ended up on 16th and Joe Johnson one night, and the Spirit of God spoke to me, which I didn't even know. And told me to go to church. And all I can think about was going to church just as I was. So I'd been up all night, and so when the morning sun came out, I just ended up going to the church. I put me a suit on, and I went on up into the church. But the thing about how I went, I brought my trouble with me, because I used to hear people say trouble wouldn't last always and things like that. So I brought drugs with me to the church and did drugs in the church and things like that, because the pain was so severe, I was willing to try anything except what I've already been doing. So that's just the take about this book, man. And I thank God that he inspired me to write this book so it can help a generation of young people, as Pastor Walker was saying. You know, he's a very good friend of mine. I'm very inspired by what he has done before me. And it calls me to just continue to push on, because he spoke about God a lot. And I knew then, I said, now here's a man that speaks about God no matter who's around. Right. And I was inspired by that, because when I was on drugs, I used to do drugs everywhere I went. I mean, that's just the way, it was a way of life. I did it every day. I was addicted. It had control of my life. That's why they call it a controlled substance, because it will control your life, or at least that's what it did for me.
Okay, Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Minister Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Haney. I too, my book, I wrote my book for therapeutic reasons. and to let other people know that no matter how far down the wrong road you go, God's arms are long enough to reach you. And me, I was molested as a child by a family member. Then I married at a young age, 16 years old, and married to try to get out of the house, and happened to marry a pedophile, and he impregnates my 13-year-old babysitter, and the baby born on my birthday, and so I was too young to deal with any of that. So I was emotionally scarred, and turned to crack myself, and I smoked crack for almost 15 years and went down the wrong road. But it's amazing that no matter how far down the wrong road you go, God will still have his hand on you. I knew at a young age that I was supposed to be one of God's preachers. But I couldn't figure out, when I would get high at the crack house, I would sing His Eyes on the Sparrow, or I'm Still Holding On, and would scare people, because I liked to read the Bible when I was high, that sort of thing. But I didn't know that God was just instilling some things in me to take with me once He delivered me. So even in writing the book, you know, I got cut off from my family. A lot of my family members didn't like the book for whatever various reasons. But the thing about it is, God taught me a long time ago that we all go to some kind of prison. The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And he do that by setting up all kinds of prisons for you. Emotional prisons, financial prison, relational prison. You know, get in unhealthy relationships. And of course, a financial prison, living from paycheck to paycheck or no paycheck at all. But what God taught me was, no matter what type of prison the enemy set up for you, the key to any prison is your praise. So my book is set out to show somebody else that you can be molested. You can be married to the pedophile. You can have a crack addiction, whatever. But when you turn it over to God and let Him transform your life, He can make a mess into a masterpiece, because He did it for me. I am now 19 years clean off crack. I'm the owner of Authentic Tax Service for the last 9 years. And as well as I've been the paralegal for the same district attorney that sent me to prison on and off for the last 12 or 13 years. So, you know, God can turn a thing around.
And you've got a story.
Right.
And I certainly appreciate the three of you with that. And so what we're going to do, we're going to take this second commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll have Pastor Walker to make some statements, and we'll go back and use this last 10 minutes to talk about things that you think that might help our audience to overcome whatever problems that they might have. And I think that what you're doing is exactly what we're trying to do here. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Pastor Kay Walker, Minister Brown, and Minister Waller in reference to overcoming negative attitudes and conditions. And let's see, Pastor, let's start with you by having you to make some statements in terms of some of the things that we've already talked about, and then we'll have Minister Waller to give us some information, and then come back and let Minister Brown end it for today, because I think she's got some extraordinary kind of information that's chilling in a real sense. Let's start with you then.
Dr. Haney, you know, a lot of times people that get caught up in these various types of traps in life, they caught up and they don't realize that there's a way that they can overcome them. You know, of course, my own story, you know, people know, you know, no shame in my game about my 17 plus years of drug addiction and being set free from it for 28 years now, because God's power, you know, stepped into my life and broke those chains of bondage. And to know that there, not only myself, but there are countless numbers of others whose God has stepped into their lives and broke the chains of bondage, you know. And a lot of people don't realize, you know, especially like in Minister Waller's situation, he was addicted to the lifestyle of selling drugs before he got addicted to the actual drug itself. That's it. Mm-hmm. So there's an addiction that goes along that a lot of people don't even realize, that they're just addicted to that lifestyle of making money, the fast money, making so many thousands of dollars a day and stuff like that, that it's so hard to break those chains. I mean, prison has a way of breaking it for you when they put you in there. Now you go from $1,000 a day to 17 cents an hour, you know, working in the prison system. But, you know, but the reality of it is that a lot of people are entrapped, and that's why we have shows like this, so that people can understand that there are people that have gone through what you've gone through, and they have not despaired, they have not given up hope, but they have actually made a decision, turned their lives to God, and allowed God to guide them through the processes of life and bring them to places that many of us would not have even imagined when we was caught up in the midst of our madness that we would ever arrive at. And that's why it's so great to have people like this to come on here and to share their information, share their stories. And I don't want to take up their time, so I'm just going to be quiet.
Okay, Minister Waller.
Okay. Yeah, what I like to say about this particular high, because most people love to get high. After trying it one time and like it, that's it. Once a person tried and like it, it's a possibility that they'll try it again and again. So it took one hit for me to try. And after doing it for all those years, and God knew that I love to get high. That's what I like about the God that I serve. I didn't know him, but I had to try him. And he introduced me to this high. He said, Ricky, I have a high for you. And if you don't like it, you can always go back to the one that you love the most. Well, what God showed me, that he knew how to set me up. See, I've been set up before by the enemy, and he broke me down. But God also can set you up. And he know that one particular high that I've been looking for, I wanted the one that lasts the longest, the one that lasts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's the high he introduced me to. And the word says, oh, taste and see that the Lord God is good. And that's what happened. I had that taste. And so once he gave me and instilled that high into me, he realized that there's so many people that love to get high that I thought it was time for me to introduce them to the greatest high of them all. And that's why it's called Still High. And I love this book because it is here to help others. And you know, once I got finished with it, I rejoiced because I felt like that somebody might be able to get information that will help them instead of being afraid of. Try something like this. It's good for you. It'll work. I haven't seen anything that can top it. That's the only thing about this high. I haven't seen anything that can match it. It's like, why would I have to go looking for something that I already have?
That's right.
That's what happened. You know, the drugs beat me down so bad that I thought I was going to use the rest of my life. But let me say this. It all came from me watching somebody else. So we have to be mindful of what we do in front of others.
That's right.
I had a cousin that used to do drugs, and he didn't mean no harm. But he needed someone to go in the bathroom with him while he tied the sock around his arm, and just so happened, he chose me to do it. And I got excited about it, because once I tied the sock around his arm, he would take his instrument out and take some water and put it in a top, put the powder in it, light a match up under it, and I was excited about what I saw. And then when he drew it up to fix it, to get ready to shoot it in his arm, he would tell me after he stuck the needle in his arm, he said, now loosen the sock. And then he would push it in, and then he would take it out and turn around and look at me. And this is what he would say to me: "Don't you never do this." And I'm thinking, why would you say don't never do something that it looked like you're enjoying? And all I could think about at that young age is that one day I'm gonna get a chance to do that. Well, I grew up, he went to prison, he came back out, he would go to prison and get back out. And finally, this time he was in prison when the drug ended up in my hand. He sent me a letter and said he heard about I was using heroin. I didn't know what I was gonna say when he got back because he didn't stay very long. He was a thief. They don't keep you very long when you go out stealing. So, but anyway, when he got back, I shared with him, I said, yeah, I'm doing it, but I'm not doing it the way. I never stuck a needle in my arm, but I snorted it for all those years, and it gave me the same result. It beat me down.
Right.
Yes.
Mr. Brown, Minister Brown.
Well, from prison to praise, I just want everybody to know that whatever prison you're in, just learn how to praise your way through. You know, the book is actually available on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles because it's very anointed. Because I've been through so many different prisons. Like I said before, the molestation and everything. But the good part is about where I am now. Because I learned how to praise my way through. I'm an entrepreneur. You know, I've been the paralegal for the district attorney, because you got to think, you know you serve an awesome God when he can make your enemies your footstool. The same district attorney that sent me to prison is the same one that I was working for and still do some work for from time to time now, as a matter of fact. But that just goes to show when we learn how to praise our way through, God can turn some things around for you. Because life will try to beat you down and make you think that I can never do any better, that I'm so doped out that this is all, or even the things you talking about, watch what we do around other people. Even when we've heard so long, you're going to grow up and be just like your daddy. You're going to grow up and be just like your mama. Well, the buck stops with you. Any generational curse that has been bestowed upon a person, we cast that out. Because when you learn how to praise, you can praise your way through any prison that he done set up for you. And there was a lot of things in my life that I had to overcome. Even with me opening my business up. And I feel like I'm pretty successful. I've been open 9 years. I own a tax office, and it was amazing because in order for me to get my tax office, I had to turn in my fingerprints. And I knew that my fingerprints wasn't no good. But the same district attorney that sent me to prison wrote a letter about my integrity.
Wow.
And sent that in appeal because they turned me down at first. You know, the woman saw my fingerprints. She was like, you can't open no tax office. But whatever God had for me is for me.
That's right.
So my old boss, Attorney John Price, love him dearly. He wrote a letter and appeal to the IRS on my behalf. And they overturned the decision and allowed me to open up.